Chapter 6. Kai. We're getting closer and closer to Grandia. It's time to tell Indy what I want to do. There are speakers in the cockpit and down in the hold. The commander of our fleet can hear anything I say, and so can Caleb. So I'm going to have to write this out for Indy. I can reach into my pocket and pull out a stick of charcoal and a napkin from the camp's meal hall. I always keep these things up with me. Who knows when the opportunity to send a message to Cassia might come along. India glances over at me and raises her eyebrows. Silently, she mouths, "Who are you writing to?" I point at her and her face lights up. I'm trying to think of the best way to ask her. "In the carving, I said we should try to run away from all of this. Remember? Let's do that now. If Indy agrees to come with me, maybe we can find a way to get Cassia and escape with the ship. I only get one word written down, in, before a voice fills the cockpit. "This is your chief pilot speaking." I feel a little jolt of recognition, even though I've never heard him speak before. Indy draws in her breath, and I shove the charcoal and paper back into my pocket as if the chief pilot can see us. His voice sounds rich and musical, pleasing but strong. It's coming from the control panel, but the quality of the transmission is much better than usual. It sounds like he's actually on the ship. I'm also the pilot of the Rising. Indy and I turn to look at each other. She was right, but there's no triumph in her expression, only conviction. "Soon, I will speak to everyone in all of the provinces," the pilot says. "But those of you taking part in the initial wave of the Rising have the right to hear from me first. You are here because of your decision to join the Rising and your merits as participants in this rebellion. And you are also here because of another important characteristic, one for which you cannot take credit." I look over at Indy. Her face looks beautiful, lit up. She believes in the pilot. Do I? Now that I've heard his voice. "The red tablet doesn't work on you," the pilot says. "You remember what the society would have you forget. As some of you have long suspected, the Rising did this. We made you immune to the red tablet. And that is not all. You are also immune to an illness that is even now overtaking cities and boroughs throughout the provinces." They never said anything about an illness. My muscles tense. What does this mean for Cassia? "Some of you have heard of the plague." India turns to me. "Have you?" she mouths. I almost say no, but then I realize that I might have. The mystery illness that killed Eli's parents. "Eli," I mouth back, and Indy nods. "The society intended the plague for the enemy," the pilot says. "They poisoned some of the enemy's rivers and released the plague into others. This, combined with continued attacks from the air, completely eliminated the enemy. But the society has pretended that the enemy still exists. The society needed someone to blame for the ongoing loss of life of those who live in the outer provinces. Some of you who were out there in those camps, you know that the society wanted to eradicate aberrations and anomalies completely. They used your deaths and the information they gathered from them as one last great collection of data." Silence. We all know that what he says is true. "We wanted to come in and save you sooner," the pilot says, "but we weren't ready yet. We had to wait a little longer, but we did not forget you." "Didn't you?" I want to ask. Some of my old bitterness against the Rising fills me, and I grip the controls of the ship tightly, staring out into the night. "Back when the society created the plague," the pilot says, "there were those who remembered that what is water in one place becomes rain somewhere else. They knew that releasing this disease would come back to us somehow, no matter how many precautions were taken. It created a division among the scientists in the society, and many of them secretly joined the Rising. Some of our scientists found a way to make people immune to the red tablet and also to the plague, In the beginning, we didn't have the resources to give these immunities to everyone, so we had to choose. And we chose you. He chose us, Indy whispers. You haven't forgotten the things the society wanted you to lose, and you can't get the plague. We protected you from both, the pilot pauses. You've always known that we have been preparing you for the most important errand of all, bringing in the rising. But you've never known exactly what your cargo would be. You carry the cure, the pilot says. Right now, the errand ships covered by the fighters are bringing the cure to the most impacted cities, to Central, Grandia, Oria, Acadia. Central is one of the most impacted cities. Is Cassia sick? We never knew if she was immune to the red tablet. I don't think that she is. And why is the plague in so many places, the largest cities, all sick at the same time? Shouldn't it take longer to spread instead of exploding everywhere at once? That's a question for Xander. I wish I could ask him. Indy glances over at me. No, she says. She knows what I want to do. She knows that I want to try to get to Cassia anyway. She's right. That is what I want to do. And if it were me by myself, I'd risk it. I'd try to outrun the rising. But it's not just me. Many of you, the pilot says, have been paired with someone you know. This was intentional. We knew it would be difficult for those of you who still have loved ones within the society to resist taking the cure to your family and friends. We cannot compromise the efficiency of this mission, and we will need to bring you down should you try to deviate from your assigned course. The rising is smart. They matched me with the one person in camp I care about, which goes to show that caring about anyone leaves you vulnerable. I've known this for years, but I still can't stop. We have an adequate supply of the cure, the pilot says. We do not have a surplus. Please don't waste the resources many have sacrificed to provide. It's so calculated, the way they paired us up, the way they made just enough of the cure. This sounds like the society, I say out loud. We are not the society, the pilot says. But we recognize that we have to save people before we can free them. Indy and I stare at each other. Did the pilot answer me? Indy covers her mouth with her hand, and I find myself inexplicably trying not to laugh. The society built barricades in malls in order to try and contain the illness, the pilot says. They've isolated people in quarantine in the medical centers and then, when space ran out, in government buildings. These past few days have been a turning point. We confirmed that the numbers of those fallen ill have reached a critical mass. Tonight, match banquets all across the society fell apart, from Kamas to Central and beyond. The society kept trying to reconfigure the data right up until the last moment, but they could not keep up. We infiltrated the sorting centers to accelerate the problem. It wasn't difficult to throw the matching into disarray. There were silver boxes with no microcards and blank screens without matches all across the provinces. Many people took the red tablet tonight, but not all of them will forget. The match banquet is the society's signature event, the one upon which all the others rely. Its fall represents the society's inability to care for its people. Even those who did forget will soon realize that they have no match and that something is wrong. They realize that people they know, too many of them, have disappeared behind barricades and are not coming back. The society is dying, and it is our time now. The rising is for everyone. The pilot's voice drops a little as he repeats the motto, but becomes deeper with emotion. But you are the ones who will begin it. You are the ones who will save them. We wait, but he's finished speaking. The ship feels emptier without his voice. We're going to save them, Indy says. Everyone. Can you believe it? I have to believe it, I say, because if I don't believe in the rising and their cure, what hope is there for Cassia? She'll be fine, Indy says. She's part of the rising. They'll take care of her. I hope that Indy's right. Cassie wanted to join the rising, and so I followed her, But now all I care about is finding Cassia and leaving all of this behind. Society, Rising, Pilot, Plague, as soon as we can. From above, the rebellion against the society looks black and white. Black night, white barricade around the center of Grandia City. Indy drops us lower to prepare for landing. Go first, our commander tells us. Show the others how it's done. Indy's supposed to land the ship inside the barricade on the street in front of Hull City. It's going to be tight. Closer to the earth. Closer, closer, closer. The world rushes at us. Somewhere, the pilot is watching. Black ships, white marble buildings. Indy hits the ground smoothly, greasing the landing. I watch her expression. It's one of closely guarded triumph until the ship stops and she glances over at me. Then she smiles, pure joy, and hits the controls that open the door to the ship. Pilots, stay with your ships, the commander says. Co-pilot and runner, get the cures out. Caleb hoists up cases from the hold, and we each shoulder 2 of them. You first, he says, and I duck through the door and start running the second I'm down the stairs. The Rising has cleared a path through the crowd of people, and it's a straight shot to the medical center. It's almost quiet, except for the sound of the fires covering us above. I keep my head down, but out of the corner of my eye, I see Rising officers in black holding back the officials wearing white. Keep moving. That's not only what the Rising has asked us to do, it's my own personal role. So I keep going, even when I hear what's coming across the port to the medical center. Now that I know the pilot's voice, I can tell that it's him singing. And I know the song, the anthem of the society. You can tell by the way the pilot sings it that the anthem has now become a requiem, a song for the dead. I'm back in the outer provinces. My hands are black and the rocks are red. We can now work on figuring our way to make the guns fire back. The other decoys gather gunpowder to help us. They sing the anthem of the society while they work. It's the only song I know. Here, a woman in Rising Black says, and Caleb and I follow her past rows and rows of people lying still on stretchers at the foyer of the medical center. She opens the door to a storage room and gestures us inside. Put them on the table, she says, and we comply. The Rising officer scans the cases we brought with her mini port and it beeps. She keys in a code to unlock the cases. The pressurized air inside makes a hiss as it escapes and the lid opens. Inside are rows and rows of cures in red tubes. Beautiful, she says. Then she looks up at Caleb and me. Go back for the rest, she says. I'll send some of my officers out to help you. On the way out, I risk a glance down at the patient's face. Blank eyes, body still. The man's face looks empty and undone. Is there even a person inside? How far deep has he gone? What if he knows what's happening, but he's trapped there, waiting? My skin crawls. I couldn't do it. I have to move. I'd rather die than be down like that. For the first time, I feel something like loyalty to the Rising stir inside of me. If this is what the Rising has saved me from, then maybe I do owe them something. Not the rest of my life, but a few runs of the cure. And now that I've seen the sick, I can't compromise their access to the one thing that can help them. My mind races. The Rising should get control over the trains and bring cures in that way too. They better have someone good working on the logistics of getting the cure out. Maybe that's Cassie's job, and this is mine. I've changed since I ran off to the cargo and left the decoys to die. I've changed because of everything I've seen since then, and because of Cassia. I can't leave people behind again. I have to keep running in this damn cure, even if it means I can't get to Cassia as soon as I'd like. Back on the ship, I slide into the co-pilot's seat, and Caleb climbs on board after me. Wait, and he says, what's that you have? Caleb's still holding one of the cases. They need all the cures, and he says. This is the cargo we're supposed to bring back with us, Caleb says, holding up the case for us to see, which doesn't prove anything. It looks exactly like the ones we just took out. It's part of the errand. I didn't know about that, Indy says, sounding suspicious. Why would you? Caleb asks. Something in his tone sounds dismissive. You're the pilot, not the runner. Indy, our commander says, come in. We're all here, Indy says, but we've got some extra cargo. Our runner brought back a case. That's approved, the commander says. Is there anything else? No, Indy says. We're all clear. She glances over at me and I shrug. Apparently they're not going to tell us anything more about Caleb's second errand. We wait for the other ships to take their turns departing from the streets in front of the buildings. The computer sends us code again for our next destination. Indy reaches for it first. Where now? I ask her, even though I know what she'll say. Back to Countless, she says, to get more of the cure. And then, I ask, then we come here again. This is our route, for now. There's a hint of sympathy in her voice. Someone else will take Cure's Central. They'd better, I say. I don't care if the pilot hears. In fact, I hope he does. Why not? Long ago, people used to say what they wanted out loud and hope that someone would give it to them. They called it praying. Cassia has something tangible, though. The papers from the carving. She's only used a few of them to send messages. There must be plenty left for her to use for whatever she needs. Maybe even enough to bargain for a cure. Cassia knows how to trade. We start down the makeshift hallway, building up speed. The white and black uniforms on the ground grow smaller and smaller. We lift up. It's not long before the buildings disappear too, and then it's all gone. I can still hear the pilot singing the anthem of the society. I'm taking a great for Vic. All day long he talks to me. I know it means I'm crazy, but I can't help hearing him. He talks to me while Eli and I pull spheres from the stream. Over and over, Vic tells me his story about Lainey, the girl he loved. I picture it in my mind, him falling in love with an anomaly, telling Lainey how he felt, watching the rainbow trout swim and going to speak with their parents, standing up to celebrate a contract, smiling as he reached for her hand to claim happiness in spite of the society, coming back to find her gone. Is that what's going to happen to me when I finally go to look for Cassia? Cassia has changed me. I'm a better person now because of her, but it's also going to be harder than ever to get to her. Indy brings us up higher. Some people think the stars must look closer from up here. They don't. When you're up here, you realize how distant they really are, how impossible to reach.